Yom. We'll start from 28th verse that we left last week, last class. Okay. आयुधानामहं वज्रं धेनूनामस्मि कामधुक्
आयुधानामहं वज्रं धेनूनामस्मि कामधुक्
प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः सर्पानामस्मि वासुकिः
प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः
अनन्तश्चास्मि नागानां वरुणो यादसामहम्
अनन्तश्चास्मि नागानां वरुणो यादसामहम्
पितॄणामर्यमा चास्मि यमः संयमतामहम्
पितॄणामर्यमा चास्मि यमः संयमतामहम्
प्रह्लादश्चास्मि दैत्यानां कालः कलयतामहम्
प्रह्लादा प्रह्लादश्चास्मि दैत्यानां कालः कलयतामहम्
मृगाणां च मृगेन्द्रोऽहम् वैनतेयश्च पक्षिणाम्
मृगाणां च मृगेन्द्रोऽहं वैनतेयश्च पक्षिणाम्
पवतामस्मि रामशश्वमृतामहम्
पवनपवतामस्मि रामशस्त्रमृतामहम्
दशानां मकरश्चास्मि श्रोतसामस्मि जाह्नवी
जषानां मकरश्चास्मि स्त्रोतसामस्मि जाह्नवी
सर्गाणां मन्दिरन्तश्च मध्यं चैवाहमर्जुन
सर्गानामादिरन्तश्च मद्यं चैवाहमर्जुन
अध्यात्मविद्यानां वादप्रवदतामहम्
अध्यात्मविद्यानां वादः प्रवदतामहम्
अक्षरा अक्षराणाम् अकारोऽस्मि द्वन्द्वः सामासिकस्य च
अक्षराणामकारोऽस्मि द्वन्द्वः सामासिकस्य च
अहमेवाक्षयः कालो दाताहं विश्वतो मुखः
अहमेवाक्षयः कालो धाताहं विश्वतो मुखः
मृत्युः सर्व मृत्युः सर्वहरश्चाहम् उद्भवश्च भविष्यताम्
मृत्युः सर्वहरश्चाहम् उद्भवश्च भविष्यताम्
श्रोर्वाश्च नारीणाम् मृतिर्मेधा धृतिक्षमा
श्रीर्वाक्च नारीणां स्मृतिर्मेधा धृतिः क्षमा
बृहत्साम तथा साम्नाम् गायत्री छन्दसामहम्
बृहत्साम तथा साम्नां गायत्री छन्दसामहम्
मासानां मार्गशीर्षोऽहम् ऋतूनां कुसुमाकरः
मासानां मार्गशीर्षोऽहं ऋतूनां कुसुमाकरः
So we'll start from the 29th verse. So as we all know, right, he's talking about giving different examples of his glories. in practical examples so that we can all relate to it, as Arjuna had asked him. So he was in the 28th verse, he was talking about normal snakes, and the 29th verse, he talks about water snakes. Hmm. So in this, he says, if you notice that Anantaschasmi Naganam Varuno Yada Samaham. So he says that amongst the water snakes, I am Ananta. Ananta in a literal form means endless. So here, what is he referring to when he says Ananta? Ananta Shayana. Who is Ananta Shayana? Vishnu, right? Mahavishnu in a sattvic mood, lying down on Adishesha. That is what he's referring to here. And Lakshmi is at the consort, as at his feet. So, so here, what we see here, there is multiple snakes, right? Lots and lots of snakes there on which Mahavishnu is resting. And if you notice, one thing is that is the snake, right? The head is turned inwards. So typically, if you notice a stain, the body is there and the head is turned the other direction. Here, the head is turned inwards. So here, head here represents the mind, right? So this is talking about in this Ananta Shayana position, the mind is turned inwards. Inwards always means that what you're going inside rather than getting trapped in the outside world. So that is what is always effort even for us, right? When you turn your mind inwards is when you realize who you are, right? The more you're always projecting your mind outside, you're in the worldly charm of things, and it also gives you the mixture of both happiness and sadness altogether, right? So, so when you move inwards is when you move upwards in spirituality. That is the reference here that is referring to here in this first one. Then, Varuno Yada Samaham. Varuna, right? Means the marine, right? The marine beings, right? Varuna is what? Varuna is none other than he's the king of the ocean. That part we all know, right? Pitru Nam Aryama Chasmi. Pitrus, as we all know, right? There are different planes of existence. We've talked about higher planes when we leave the body, right? And Pitrus is where all the ancestors are. Their abode is the Pitrus. Now, in the Pitrus also there are multiple heads, multiple people who are there. And then in that he says, Aryama, Pitrunam Aryama Chasmi. That Aryama is the chief of that. So again, the reason he's bringing all of this is not for us to really know who's what, etc. Right? He's just saying that I am in everywhere. You look at in the physical world that we all are able to conceptualize, etc. I'm here. I'm also there in the outer world of things, right? And the other world of things that today you are not aware of it, but I'm also there. There he also now brings up Yama Samyamatamaham. So the ultimate controller of annihilation is Yama. Ultimate controller. So what is Yama's thing? He controls life. Population control, if there is one person who has to do it, it is Yama. Just imagine if Yama was to take rest for a day or a few days or a week or something, what would happen to our population, right? So he regulates life. So, and whenever there is life ending, right? Whenever something ends, there is something new that gets created. And we have seen this in our own thing, right? You see our own progression, even in humanity. It is said that the IQ quotient of today's generation or the previous generation compared to the early ones is much higher. So somewhere, it is not that it's one is ending and the same set of being. There is a transformation occurring. So, so so what is said is that for everything to develop, whether it is science, whether it is your human being, some destruction needs to happen. If you look at each one of us, right, we have grown from childhood to adulthood, to, grihastha and then old age, etc., right? Each time you progress. So Yama, therefore, is not looked at as a physical destruction or a death. It is more about constructive destruction of an aspect of one's life that gets destroyed, and then another aspect of it grows. And then that aspect comes down, and then you grow further, right? Not many people, if you notice, would be able to get into spirituality at an early age, right? Because they're not ready for it. So some today, it is happening a little earlier, but it takes a level of maturity for somebody to say, there is more to life than what I'm doing. So that constructive destruction is what is referred to here as yama, not yama as we think of it, it's coming here to, put a noose around somebody's neck and take him, to the other world. Okay, then 30th stanza. Amongst the demons, he says, I am Prahalada. This is very interesting, right? Now, normally we don't think Prahalada is a demon, but he is born amongst the demon family, isn't it? So everyone around him, his father, Hiranyakashipu, etc., all of them are part of the demon family. And for them, so in that he was born, and the background, right? While Hiranyakashipu was also a devotee, he was praying, doing all kinds of rituals to gain power, to say that I am the most powerful person. And you see a total arrogance to anything called God. But then to make sure that Prahalada in his when he was in his mother's womb, that he's shielded from all of this. Narada took him to his ashram, right? So Prahalada was, and his mother was in the ashram, and there Narada taught his mother a lot of things, chanting part, right, spirituality, right, bhakti yoga means devotion. So it is said that Prahalada was when he was incubated, when he was in the womb itself, he gained a lot of knowledge. That bhakti, that spirit that came into him after he was born, where he was totally dedicated to Lord Narayana, was something that was incubated when he was in his mother's womb. And that transformed into the way he lived his life, totally dedicated to none other than Lord Narayana. So even though he was thrown into a lot of punishment by his own father, into crocodiles, into snakes, and many other things, for him it was, Narayana is going to take care of me despite all of that, right? And we know the rest of the story, what happened after that. And then we get into Kala Kalayata Maham. Kala. See the time. So here, you can look at time in time has multiple facets, right? So you can today when we say time, we look at time as the hours, minutes, seconds, nanoseconds, etc., etc. You can look at time also in the context of the overall, realm of living things, right? When we look at yugas, millions and millions of Kali Yuga that we have, right? It, and our life of 80, 90, 100 years, whatever it is a fraction of that time. And when we look at our own life in this lifetime, it is this. But, knowing fully the fact that I'm not, existing just in this body, I've been existing in multiple bodies before. And if I look at that, then you sort of, realize that the time that I'm in here, I have to make the best use of the time here. So this time, therefore, is very relative. And for us, time is always linear. On the other hand, if you see the existence, recently there was some article that, what is it, the concept of how universe was created, etc., was totally disputed, that it was totally wrong. What is it? So I don't remember, there was some research study that came out recently.
In
So,
Bhagavatam,
so
sir.
well, yeah, somewhere it came. I don't remember the thing. I have to read that article, but I heard this from somebody that recently somebody put that Darwin's theory, right? The Darwin's theory of time, Darwin's theory of creation of the universe has been put to rest, is what I heard, but I have to read that thing. So time. And then Mrgana Chimrgendroham. Right. Amongst the animals in the forest, it is I'm lion. Right. We can all relate to that. The supreme beast, the one that is worshipped, the one that is respected. And then Vanas, and then Pakshinam, amongst the birds, none other than Garuda, right? He's the vehicle for none other than Lord Vishnu itself. Um, so that's fairly straightforward, 30th stanza. In all of this, right, we have to just look at, one has to just relate that he's in all of this. Somewhere, what is he conveying through all of these things, right? At least a few of them. Um, Pavana, yeah, 31st stanza, no? Pavanaha, purifier. It's a very interesting thing. How many of us think wind is a purifier? See, whenever if you have a foul smell, you put the fan on and you take the foul smell off, right? We are creating a wind energy using our fan. And the wind energy as it is provided from outside. You see, in nature, wind comes naturally. Now, how does wind come? Very interesting, right? Wind by itself doesn't get created. Wind, the concept of wind happens only in the presence of the sun. Why is the presence of the sun required? See, when the sun shines, right, it creates different, you know, what do you call heating aspects within the earth itself, right? The one is that the earth has a curvature; it is not flat. Second, there is water body, there is land body, etc. So each time the sun shines, there is a different heating mechanism that happens at the water level and at the land level. And this imbalance in what you call the heating of these things is what creates, it is like this, right? One place where there is less air and another place there's a lot of air. What will happen? The air flushes from the higher to the lower, right? So that is what creates the wind. That's what he's saying is that it purifies. And wind by itself cannot exist. Wind can exist only in the presence of the sun. Because because of the presence of the sun, there are places where high energy is created. There are also places where there's low energy created. And from the high energy to low energy, when something moves, that is what creates a wind. Okay. Rama Shashwamritam. This is very, very known to all of us, right? The noblest of any being today, if it was one person, it has always been Rama. Perfect in every possible thing, as a wife, as a husband, as a son, as a father, as a brother, right? Whatever he has done to Lakshmana, to Bharata, everything, he's considered the ultimate. And even, in Ravana, his staunch enemy, he respected him. And, he never, took his bow and arrow unless it was absolutely necessary. So even though he was, it's very good. He could have killed Ravana in multiple ways. Even on the day when he was killed, there was a respect that was shown to him. So that is the reason Rama Shashva Mritamaham. Dashana Makaras Chasmi. Um, so in the fishes, right? Makara means what is shark. And then Janhavi. Janhavi means Shrotasam Asmi Janhavi. Amongst the rivers and Ganges. He's purified, right? These things we have learned it, we have been taught in our shlokas, it pretty much conveys that. Um, 32nd verse now. 32nd verse. Sarganam Asmi. Sarganam Asmi. Sarganam Andirantascha, right? I am, this is come in one of the early verses also in the same chapter. I am at the beginning, I am in the middle, I am also the end of everything. So what does this mean to all of us? I am big I'm the beginning means what I am, for something to be created, I have to be there. For something to be sustained, my presence is required. And for something to also end, I have to be there. So this entire cycle, whether you refer to it as, birth and death, or whether you refer to any type of constructive destruction, in all of that, I am part of that creation. So even whether it is an object, whether it is a living being, non-living being, everything has to go through this. And then this is an interesting one. Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam. Amongst the knowledge things, there is what we refer to as objective knowledge and subjective knowledge, right? What is objective knowledge? All the things that we hear, um, let's say, for example, take an example. Coffee is good for you. Alcohol is good for you. Things that we read every day, right? And then somebody will say, sitting here in this is good for you. So somebody else will say, later on, disprove to say that it's not there. So if you notice the science that we normally hear, which is objective science, which is of something of quantitative aspect, something quantitative, something maybe sounding very logical, etc., is always disputed, right? So that is what is referred to as objective science. So he says more than the objective science, the science that I am is the subjective science. Subjective science means what? The ultimate source of everything. What is the final subject? All of us are objects. But inside me, there is a subject. Subject means what? An entity that is governing it. That subject is me. So the learning of that subject, the learning of here what Adhyatma Vidya. Adhyatma Vidya is what? Knowing yourself, knowing what my true entity is. That is this. So we have to understand that in life we need both of these, right? It is the same as there is Paravidya and Aparavidya. We've talked about this earlier. Para means what? Para means the ultimate, or you can call it the spiritual science. Aparavidya is all the worldly knowledge. So the one thing that you look at subjective science, right? Whatever comes as Aparavidya is more of knowledge. It's more of facts. This happened, that happened, this king there. All of those are sort of, whatever we read in history, geography that children are going through exams right now, all come under this Aparavidya, right? Even science, whatever we pretty much, what we have learned. And when we get into subjective science, why is this happening? What really is the cause for whatever I'm going through, right? Why is it that I'm going through both? I'm happy for the same thing, then I'm sad for the same thing. Questioning life as, life situations. That is subjective science. That is what he's saying is that I am that Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam. Vada Parabada Damaham. Vada means what? Whenever there is a debate, this is something that is there in our, if you look at all the Puranas, Itihasas, it's there. The way the debate used to occur. What is typical debate occur? Let's say that, there are two people debating. Both of them are equally, knowledgeable. Let's just take that, right? One person might be just, speaking all logic, etc., only with the point of bringing down the other person. His point is not about just conveying the facts and just to see what is the value of what the other person's opinions are. It is more about proving myself. And in proving myself, I want to put that other person down. That is called, this particular debate in Sanskrit is called is called as Jalpa. Jalpa, that's what one of the types of debates. The other type of debate that is referred to in our, this is called Vitanda. Vitanda means this person actually doesn't have a point to prove. But but he'll keep on arguing. He'll keep on, putting down that other person. And today we see this in politics a lot, isn't it? Has no meaning in whatever that person says. But his intent is for that other person not to, shine, not to prosper, etc. And in that context, he keeps on putting that person up. And then Vada, which is what is referred to here amongst the debate, is where both of them give their own constructive inputs. And then, there is a third person, not between the third person who's a judge, who says between the two of them, who has got the best judgment, who has got the best intelligence, right? And that person has given the right respect. And both of them understand each other's values. Both of them respect each other. It is not one among saying, I'm better than you, by either putting you down with no, with information or putting you down with no information. So all of the things, right? Or if you see Adi Shankaracharya's debate that he's had with many people, whenever he had to prove a point, he had to go through this debate. Yajnavalka, then what is this? Ashtavakra. You listen to all of their, um, teachings. Everything, they just didn't come into prominence by just I am this, right? They had to go through debates because those days the number of intellectuals were very high. And they would always say, okay, fine, if you think you have a pro point, let's have a debate. And then they would have a large group of people there, and there would be a judge that would say who's the right person, who has got the right information, or who is the better amongst two, etc. So yeah. Then 33rd verse is another beautiful. Aksharanam akarosmi. Akshara. Means what? The word in alphabets is the primordial sound, right? It is considered that without nothing is possible. You open your mouth, the first thing the child utters, as a letter, as something that comes is right? And every word, if you take any syllable, ka, there's a at the end of it. So without nothing exists. That's why he says, amongst the alphabets, I am a. And then he says, dvandva. Dvandva samasikasya cha. So dvandva this is prominent in Sanskrit. Dvandva means a compound word where two simple words are combined together. And you don't see much in other language, but in Sanskrit you see a lot of it, right? For example, yeah, Rama Lakshmana. Then during Dasara time we say, right, Durga Lakshmi Saraswati Bhyo Namaha. All of these three are together. It is not that they are by itself constructive right words. Rama Lakshmana, then Matra Pitamaha, Mata Pitamaha. All of these are called dvandvas. Dvandvas means these are words where compound words where two simple words are combined together and they themselves convey something. So, for example, then when we talk about opposites, right? Sukha dukkha, happiness, this sadness. Sukha dukkha is a word, legitimate word by itself. You don't see that elsewhere, right? You don't see that in English. There you say happiness and sadness. Here, sukha dukkha. So like that, dvandva is two things combined. And reason why, especially sukha dukkha, etc., is, it gives a meaning, right? It says that sukha dukkha is part and parcel of your life. Because you don't say happiness and then separately sadness, right? Happiness, sadness is part of you. They cannot be removed. You cannot say, I can only be happy. I can, or I'll always be sad in my life. I'll go through both. Okay. Um, yeah, Sharana. Go to that. Yeah. And then, yeah, so amongst the letters, I am letter A. Amongst the I am the compounds in that word. And then I am the inexhaustible aspect of time. Like, time is referred to also earlier here. So here he is just saying that I am that endless time. I am beyond time. Let's put it this way. So earlier he said I am time because between two events I need time. But I am also beyond time. That means I've existed before what you call as a particular event, and I will continue to exist after you call as a particular event. And so before creation, I was there. After the so-called creation ends or the destruction of this universe happens, I'll still be there. So I am beyond time. So sort of you see right there, that concept of time was a limited, perspective of how you and I relate to time. Here he is referring to himself here as something that I am beyond the time. Yeah. And then Vishwato Mukha, a very nice one. Vishwato Mukha means what? I am facing in all directions is a literal meaning. Hmm? So, did I miss one before that? Vishwato. Yeah. Um, Vishwato. What does Vishwato Mukha means? His face is everywhere. That means what? And the way to understand this is what that consciousness is all pervading. That's the way he's relating it. Right? When somebody says, my face is everywhere and I can see in all directions, that means I'm everywhere. Right? And because of the fact that I'm everywhere, I provide the best justice. See, when you and I, or a judge or somebody looks at something, he's looking at a limited aspect of what a lawyer is saying, what a defendant is saying, and based on that, he gives justice. But this person is in the mind of everybody. He knows exactly what, not only what the lawyer is saying, but even the inner details of that. Similarly, on the defendant side. So therefore, if justice is the most just, best justice possible, the hemisphere. That is the reason it is said that, even though we look at nature, this bad thing is happening, this is unfair, this is that, whether it is in our life or in nature, one can never question it. Because what is happening, whatever results we are going through, or whatever situations we are going through, or whatever experience everyone is going through, is the most just possible thing. Because his face is everywhere. He's everywhere. All of us have read in this, this Purusha Suktam, right? How does it start? How does it start? Sahasra Shirisha Purushaha Sahasraksha Sahasrapad. Sahasra. Sahasra means what? 1,000 heads, 1,000 feet, 1,000, anything, eyes, everything, 1,000. Well, the 1,000 is just indicative of the multiplicity of his thing. That means what? He's everywhere. If there's one person who's got 1,000 things, then that means what? He can perceive everything. Everything that's happening. Supposing in a house there was somebody with this entity, he knows in and out of everything that's happening. That relates to the Vishwato Mukha. Right? If such an entity, you can't question him. Because his eyes and ears are everywhere. Nobody can say, you don't know what I'm telling. Do you see, we say that, no, you don't know what I'm saying because you're not there. I was there. But if somebody says, I was there and I was there also in the other place and I was also here, you cannot argue against me. I know in and about everything. How can you even question it? That's what he's saying. I am. I am that pervades each and everything. So pervading can be looked at in the context of at a level of a consciousness, but also in the context of all the things that happens in our life situations, etc., right? And the corresponding responses, results that we get, etc., how to relate to them. That, whatever is happening to me at this time is the most just and right thing, also right thing. I might disagree that it is a wrong thing, but it is a right thing from the standpoint of that Ishvara, right? That is the thing, deeper aspect of this particular, Vishwakarma that we have to relate to. Okay, 34th. Um, this starts very profoundly. Mrityu, I am death. Um, Death is again related to time, right? That means that, what does death here means? That everything that you and I see in Prakriti means nature. Everything that we call as so-called matter, that is Prakriti, right? Prakriti, Purusha. That Purusha Suktam was referring to the Purusha, which was referring to that, divine entity or the big mind or the ultimate, divine force. Prakriti is everything that is governed by that same Purusha, but it is something that you and I relate to. All the examples that he gave earlier in the previous sentences are all referring to Prakriti. And yet he was relating that to how he is that amongst the Vedas and Samaveda, right? Things like that. So um, here he says this, I am dead. He's saying that I am not actually killing anything. I'm actually a destructive power. So, so to say that, what is a destructive power, right? So, let's say that, all of us have both a constructive power and destructive power, right? Ultimately, what I do with a knife is up to me. But for me to even have that destructive power to kill somebody, that energy to destruct comes from him. So he's saying that I'm not the one killing the other person. Your knife, your hands. But without my power, you could not have killed that other person. So even in a criminal, I am not the one killing that other person. I'm giving the destructive power to that criminal to do what he wants. It is his free will. But I am that force, that destructive force. So I am simply the instrument, is somebody else's. But I am that provider of that, what do you call, eliminating aspect of the enabler for that to happen. Okay. Mrityu sarvaha uddhavascha bhavishyatam. So the people who are, people people who have all these qualities. So far he was giving all different objects, right? Then now he's going to talk about qualities that you and I have. First thing he refers to is kirti. Um, Kirti means what? Kirti means fame, prosperity, things where somebody praises you, all of that. So that quality that one has of prosperity or fame, a fame that has been bestowed on you by somebody else, that quality. So all these, let's go through these qualities and then we'll talk about it. And then the word Kirti, Shri, then Vamcha, Shri Vak. Then there's the word Shri Vakcha. So there's a two words there. Shri means what? Beauty, wealth. Vak means what? The ability to speak. But here he is not referring to blabbering speech, refined speech. Beauty as in not a show of beauty, but the inner beauty, the inner wealth in you. Smriti. Kirti, Shri, Vak. He used the word Nari Nam here. Nari Nam, the reason he's using Nari Nam amongst the women who have these qualities. So Nari Nam, because it is considered amongst the two genders, that Naris, have a more natural aspect of these things, whether it is beauty, whether it is compassion, whether it is a lot of the qualities is more inherent in them. But this has to be not construed as this is women's quality. Just like you said sometimes that men, amongst the men, I am this, right? It doesn't mean it's men. It is everyone like him here also. He's referring to everybody, but he's give the word Nari Nam just to portray the fact that, Naris have a more natural inclination towards these things. Vak means what? Revised speech. Smriti. Narinam Smritir Medha. Smriti means what? Memory, as you all know, right? So the ability to have that memory, ability to, when we look at memory here, we have to also in that context relate to forgetfulness also here. See, one is that I should memorize something, but also I want to be able to forget certain things, right? What are the things you want to forget? Some bad incidents, something somebody bothered you that is just making you really agonizing. It's hurting you a lot. You want to get it out of your mind. You want to drop it. It's not kept dropping. But let's say somebody was able to remove it out of your memory inside your brain, right? That particular incident. Relief, isn't it? So, and yeah, when somebody told me 5 years back, this 15 years back, this one, if all of them were to keep retained in memory, not good for us at all. Let alone something that happened 5 janmas earlier, last janma. This word forgetfulness has come in a previous chapter also. Why is it that, the day I leave this body and I go into another body, all my previous janmas things all forgotten? Because I don't want to know. I don't want to know who tormented me the previous janma so that I can go, bash at that person. Drop it, right? So Smriti is both memory and, related forgetfulness that is there. And then Meda. Meda means what? Um, Meda Suktam. That word Meda Suktam that children are learning. That Meda means intelligence. Intelligence is what for me to retain, it's sort of related to that particular thing. But that intelligence of whatever, whether it is spiritual intelligence or whether it's even knowledge that factual knowledge that we all learn, that whatever I've read, it is said that, right, whenever in a classroom, a teacher teaches something and a student listens, only 25% is retained by the student. And in some cases, it is said in today's age, I don't know if you folks have read this particular thing. There was a study done in both India as well as in US. The retention power of today's Gen Z children is much, much lower than ever before. First of all, they're not able to even sit in, to sit somewhere 30, 40 minutes class. After 10 minutes, they can't absorb, come down. So the retention power, right? Especially when you have to sit in a particular place, do that is come down drastically. So that is what he's referring to here. Is I've heard something or I've read something. How much am I grasping? How much am I retaining? Medha. Dritishama. She says here that all of these qualities that you take for granted that I have, these are all also considered virtues. Not everybody has got an inner beauty. Not everybody has got that super, retaining power. In fact, if you look back, right, I don't know if you can relate to all of this. I remember my mother, she would just, relate the nakshatras of, the date of nakshatras of so many relatives, their birthday, this, that, etc. Today we have to Google and, or look at a calendar somewhere, oh, this is somebody's birthday, I have to wish that person. Isn't that happening to all of us? Somehow, if you look at your own, your own parents, your forefathers, etc., their ability to retain was much higher. Today, thanks to all the equipment that we have, Um, you know, forget even mathematical tables, etc. Nobody even knows today's children, right? Because they all, do it calculator or cell phone, whatever it is. So it just, something we can all relate to this particular teenager. So, but the important thing that he's saying is that all of these qualities, in you are because of, if you would say that, yeah, I have put some effort, etc., towards hugging up something, etc., right? But for that to be fleeting, still somebody has to do it, right? Is it that you're putting it into some physical memory that like we do right in a laptop when you say, I'm now storing it here, this file here. We are doing the same thing, but here we have no concept of storing that into a smriti into ourselves, right? Who's doing that? Who's enabling that? And who is ensuring that even at an old age, some of this we get fleeting? You all know, right? There is a dementia aspect that comes later in life. People tend to forget. But then you see some people who remember so much. What's the difference between the two of them? So a lot of these, if we just, ponder over it, right, we'll just see that all of this is happening because of him. 35th stanza. Yeah. Amongst the hymns, I am Samaveda. I am Brihat Sama. In one of the earlier verses that we talked about last week, right? He says, amongst the Vedas, I am Samaveda. If you remember that, right? And why did he say that? Because Samaveda is considered the most poetic amongst the Vedas, right? The same Rig Veda in a certain poetic form, it's so beautiful to hear, yet it's so profound in terms of its knowledge, is why it was glorified. Now, he's saying amongst that Samaveda itself, Brihat Sama. Brihat Sama is just a invocation to Lord Indra for us to understand. And it's considered one of the most powerful chants among Samaveda. So he's saying, I am that Brihat Sama. And then, Gayatri Chandasamaham. Um, we all know, right? Chanda means what is the meter. So what chanda is used in Bhagavad Gita? Pretty much most of the shlokas, slokas that we see is
Anush.
Anushtup Chandaha, right? Anushtup Chanda is what? 8 syllables. There are 4 padas, right? If you look at this verse, there are the first part that we chant, second part that we chant in the same line, there are 2 padas. Similarly, second line also, there are 2 aspects, two parts. So if you were to distribute this into 4 lines or 4 padas, 8 syllables each is 32. So the 32 constitutes what's referred to as Chanda, is Anushtup Chanda. Now, on the other hand, Gayatri, why is Gayatri Chanda, Gayatri is referred to in terms of the Chanda? Because Gayatri mantra is considered, the ultimate in terms of its essence. It's very, very deep essence. So it's considered, can chant Gayatri mantra. That's, if in your free time you can just chant Gayatri mantra. It's considered very powerful. That's the reason it's part of Sandhya Vandanam and many other, rituals, right? So, in what is there in Gayatri Mantra? The only difference is again, it is 4 padas, but 6 syllables each. Om Bhorba Vasvaha Tatsavituhu Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonaha Prachodayat. You see 4 padas. Each of those padas, there are 6 syllables. So that makes it 24 syllables in a Gayatri Mantra compared to 32 in that of this. Here, it's not that we have to understand 24, 32, etc. It's just glorifying Gayatri. And then, therefore, because the Gayatri is so powerful, the Chanda I'm glorifying. Right? There are many Chandas, right? There's just 2 of them. Many others are there. Okay? And then, Masana Margashirshoham. Amongst the months, I am Margashirsha. Margashirsha is what is that is the month, of November, December. No, that ends in Makara Sankranti, right? That is Margashirsha. And it's considered, he's therefore referring to that month as the, as his favorite, or the one that he's glorifying. And then Ritunam, amongst the seasons. I am the season of flowery, refers to flowery season. Kusuma Karaha means flower. When does the flower blossom? In spring, right? So right now, if you see all over Bangalore, you would have seen so many tweets and videos happening, right? That pink flower that is blossoming is all over the roads. All of that happens what in the month of spring. So that's the reason he's referring to that. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we will continue probably another 2, 3 stanzas to cover this thing, and then we'll put it in the next session.